Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with the Patreon friends favorite films lists. I set up a Patreon page about a few months ago, and part of the Patreon page activities, part of that is if you are a paid Patreon friend and subscriber at the Patreon page, and if you've submitted to me your favorite films list, then I shall endeavor to respond to such favorite films list in a video form. And so I've been fairly slow in my pace with regard to that, so I apologize, but I do want to say that I've seen the lists that I've been submitted, that have been submitted to me thus far, and I've seen all of them, and I do want to address all of them when they do arrive. Again, I will do this at a certain pace, and I apologize if my pace if it isn't swifter, but I will certainly try to pick up the pace with respect to that. And so part of that is to look at some lists today. And one list I received from a dear friend and a Patreon supporter. This was Will Gillespie. And you submitted this a few months ago, and I apologize for my delay. I hope you can forgive me, Will. And in any event, let me see here. You submitted your list as follows. You say, "Hi, Daisuke. Your videos have brought me great joy. I've been a dedicated follower since 2020. I never miss an upload." Let me stop there. I am very honored, my dear friend. Very honored by that. 2020, yes, that's already, gosh, 4 years and counting. So, and you say you've never missed a. You probably know more about the videos and what I talk about in the videos than I do. I'm very happy and impressed with this, and I'm very flattered by this comment, my dear friend. Really, I am. Thank you so much. You are so kind. And not only that, you have shared with me a really fascinating list. So let me go to that right now. But thank you so much, Will. And you continue, you say, "I've been thinking about my top 10 for a few days now and have come up with a short list of my all-time favorites." Okay, so let's look here. And you've numbered them 10 all the way down to 1. So let me go in order here. So you say Walkabout, then Being John Malkovich, number 9. Number 8, The 25th Hour. Number 7, The Fisher King. Number 6, What's Eating Gilbert, Grape. Number 5, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Number 4, Smoke. Number 3, Lost Highway. Number 2, Annie Hall. And number 1, 2001, A Space Odyssey. Thank you so much for this, my dear friend Will. Thank you. There's so much to talk about here. I don't know if I can talk about every aspect of this. I wish I had more time, but let me do my best. If my comments at any point are those that you might feel are in any way unsatisfactory to, I really apologize. I don't mean it that way, but let me just respond in this way here. So Smoke, let me just turn here to Smoke, and there's also the sort of companion work, which is called Blue in the Face, which I know you referred to. I remember when I first heard of Smoke, and I was able to catch up with it a little bit later in the VHS format as a rental. Yeah, it was quite a fascinating journey, and it was again during my own for lack of a better phrase, I was discovering cinema for the first time in my life. This was around the mid '90s, so. Yeah, it was to read up about this kind of independent work and kind of drama and relationship intensive examination, among other things as well. And also the interesting interaction that it has with the other companion work as well. But I'm very happy that you mentioned Smoke. So I hope that's the film that you're referring to. In any event, if I make any mistakes along the way, Will, please feel free to reach out to me and correct me at any time. But that's the first thing. And then also, let's go to some other films from the 90s here. So you have What's Eating Gilbert? Oh, yes. What's Eating Gilbert Grape. This is kind of huge deal film. It was, I would say, it's a film that really announced itself, I think, in a kind of quiet way. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that very positive, a kind of quiet way, and it has a real earnest power to it. I completely understand. That's a really fantastic pick. Really, really fantastic. And then I've spoken a little bit about Lost Highway. I think in the context of, yes, the context of the Criterion Collection recent release of that, the David Lynch film Lost Highway. I can just maybe, I might be repeating myself here, and I apologize, but I saw that in the theater. Um, and it was quite something. I remember the theater wasn't so crowded. But that, I mean, there were some people there, but it wasn't a full capacity theater showing. But I thought that was fine too. I mean, I think it was so absorbing, and there's some moments there that really, really are quite scary. I think the David Lynch, among other things, has this knack for creating these truly almost visceral or maybe fundamentally touching scares that really get at the heart of something truly frightening, which is maybe an extension of what I think is so great about David Lynch. I mean, I'm not the only one who says this, but one of the great things about David Lynch is he's able to touch upon things that are so elemental. I mean, that's true for Lost Highway, that's true for any of his other works, right? He gets at something so elemental. It's almost like it's even more elemental than language itself. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's something about that. And Lost Highway is one of those works. And I remember too, just a little aside here. There's the great image of the speeding highway, which is part of the marketing materials with the darkness and the striped paint on the road, the and the way that it speeds, and that's part of the opening credits, how the film opens, and sort of a visual motif, and you layer onto that the song, I'm deranged, etc., and you have this huge high octane speed motif that's also part of the sort of electric kinetic chaos of the film Lost Highway. So I love that. And then of course, when you get to his next film, The Straight Story, there's a wonderful shot early on in that film of the same sort of road moving at a very, very different speed than that of those shots of Lost Highway. So I love that juxtaposition. I remember when I saw that Straight Story in the theater and that scene came up early on in the film, the people who were in the audience burst out in laughter. I think everyone got the joke. It was really nice. But anyway, Lost Highway. So let me see. I'm going all over here. Oh, Being John Malkovich. This is another film that I think was mentioned earlier and maybe another list. I had the great privilege of seeing this in the theater when it was initially released. There was so much talk, so much buzz about this film, and it was a kind of quirky independent film, but it got a lot of press and a lot of attention, such that yes, you could see it in I think a fairly accessible movie theater. At least that's what I remember, and it was a really wonderfully weird experience. There is I don't want to get into too much details, but there is a particular scene in the film where you see, let me say, John Malkovich in the plural, let me put it that way. And I remember the audience that I was with, it was just like, like part of the audience was laughing hysterically, and the other part of the audience was just saying, "Whoa, what is it?" So it's this mixture of laughter and confusion that was being elicited. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Um, and let me continue on here. So let's see. Okay, Walkabout. Now, this is also a very, very great and fascinating choice that you make. I mean, there's so I think yeah, we spoke about Walkabout, didn't we? Because of the recent re-release of the Criterion Collection. I think it was the 4K release of Walkabout. Maybe a few months ago. So that was a great opportunity to revisit that work. So that's at your number 10, Being John. The 25th Hour. Yes, of course, the 25th Hour. This is, I remember when I saw this, I kind of caught up with the 25th Hour a little bit later. I wish I'd seen it in the theater when it was released, but I wasn't able to. But this is also, I think, I'm not sure how much it's spoken it's mentioned in the conversation with regard to the works of Spike Lee. I kind of I was in my teens, early teens when I first began to discover Spike Lee, but this is of course before the 25th Hour. So I always regard works like the 25th Hour and like He Got Game and Summer of Sam, etc., in that era to be a slightly different, maybe a different chapter in the works of Spike Lee, which is and I was coming a little bit late to that particular chapter, but when I arrived and was able to catch up with the 25th Hour, I agree with you. That is a really intense work indeed. That is a very, very excellent choice that you make. So the 25th Hour, and let me see what do we have here. Oh yes, yes, Annie Hall. So I think much can be said about Annie Hall, and this was also work that I saw, I think, fairly early on in my own, say, cinema journey life. And I think I saw it when I was young, or maybe I didn't quite get all the jokes, and also I wasn't experienced in relationships at the time that I first encountered the work Annie Hall. So that meant that maybe I wasn't necessarily subjectively speaking, in tune with, say, the sort of intricacies and nuances of sort of the relationship dynamics of that film. Because one of the great strengths of that work is the way in which it presents certain relationship dynamics, as you know. And then continuing on here, let's see, we have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So this is at your number 5. So this is also a film that I was able to see somewhat early in my life as well. I don't think I was fortunate enough to see this in the movie theater, unfortunately, which is a shame. But let me see. I saw it many times, many times on VHS tape, and it has this way of, I think, well, there are many levels of the film which I regard as, for me anyway, when I saw it quite young, uh, completely went over my head. I wasn't quite catching up with the various intricacies of sort of perceptions of, let's call it perceptions of quote unquote madness, end quote, and kind of, but more along the lines of a culture and counterculture, but also very much in terms of intimate relationships and the little details that can really turn into these huge things and could have huge impacts on the lives and livelihoods of various individuals that we meet in the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I guess I could say too that uh, um, whenever I encounter juicy fruit gum, I always think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So that's another great choice. And then let's see here. What have I spoken? Oh, yes. Number 1. So number 2, Annie Hall. This is another very interesting choice. I saw Annie Hall right, when I first saw Annie Hall many years ago, when I was maybe in my maybe early teens, maybe. And so I when I first encountered the work, I wasn't necessarily in I wasn't in any relationships, and when I got older, and um, I married, and I settled down, and I had a family, or I have a family. I'm raising a family. But that came much later, and so before that, a lot of the intricacies of I think the explorations of the work, I think Annie Hall rest upon, among other things, those examinations of the intricacies and external and internal considerations that are part of that relationship dynamic palette of the film. So, um, I suppose I could say that it's that's the type of thing that maybe a number of things too went over my head when I first encountered the work, but there were others that are quite kind of iconic in various respects. So that's also a really fascinating choice. And then 2001: A Space Odyssey. I've spoken a little bit about this film maybe in the context of other lists. I haven't spoken about it directly on my YouTube channel, I think. But let's see. I think if I were to add anything else to any of those other comments that I made about 2001: A Space Odyssey, it would be that uh, I, I guess, I mean, maybe I mentioned this before. I love it when I see films that show people or people thinking or ideas. And there are a number of ideas. You see people think, like there's a very famous sequence involving essentially spaceship pods and a little bit later in the film. So I'll try to be as vague as possible for the benefit of those who have not yet seen this film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. But one person in one pod has to make a choice about doing something in order to maybe potentially save themselves from what otherwise could be certain death. And so, but that choice involves making a very, very direct and quite shocking sacrifice. And so, what will this choice be? We don't hear any words or any dialogue to that effect, but you know that there is some kind of thought process going on. And the fact that there is a lot of, I don't want to say silence, but there isn't any direct conduit between what the character is thinking, what we are thinking. We can only, as we watch the film, we can only suppose, or we can posit or theorize what the character is thinking. So I always wonder what is in the computation of this character's mind as this character is making that very critical decision. Life and death stakes are to be had, whatever the choice is. And so, is there a kind of moral computation being had, or is it purely almost a kind of Darwinian type of calculation being made, or maybe a hybrid of the two, or maybe there is a huge, monumental, morally involved computation that's being had in the mind of this person, but it's taking place within a split second because time is also of the essence of that particular scene. And so there is so much, I think, or perhaps there isn't any moral consideration being made, which would make the reading of that scene quite a cynical one indeed. So that's another example of what I love about that work, and also Stanley Kubrick's films in general, is that there's a sense of, you might get a sense of people thinking, but what is that spark of thought that they are engaged with? And perhaps it's just not one spark. Maybe it's a multitude of sparks, and maybe they are somewhat contradictory. Maybe they're self-serving on the one hand, or maybe they are all embracing on the other, or they might be a mixture of the two. Who knows? And that mixture is itself inherently quite contradictory if one thinks about it. So there's a lot going on there in the space of essentially a few minutes of screen time, which is great. It's like kind of like the infinite in 2001: The Space Odyssey. Even a moment of running time in 2001: A Space Odyssey yields the infinite in terms of possible considerations. So anyway, oh gosh, and what did I miss anything? I think I missed out. Yes, the Fisher King. I didn't. Why didn't I mention the Fisher? I apologize. I think perhaps in my mind I was thinking, yes, we had talked about the Fisher King as well. Terry Gilliam, the Fisher King, in the context of there was the Criterion Collection recent release or re-release of the Fisher King discussion that I uploaded in my YouTube channel, I think a few months back. So that was a great opportunity to revisit the Fisher King in kind of grand scale. So I'm also very impressed that you put that on your list, Will. So, but anyway, thank you so much, Will Gillespie. Thank you for sharing with me your wonderful list, and also for your kind words at the top there. That is, I'm totally undeserving of such kindness and attention. Really, I am. I wish I could be better. But I apologize for not being as good as many other people on YouTube. But your kindness and your lovely words here, Will, are really quite. I'm very moved by them. So thank you so much. And to all of you, my dear friends, Patreon fans and supporters, and indeed just across the board in terms of YouTube and maybe other places like Instagram, etc. I want to say thank you so much for your kindness and attention and being giving of just a few moments of your time, taking time to stop and press play on a video. I mean that takes up a lot of your precious and valuable time. So I'm really quite grateful for that, and I want to thank you so much and just showing me wonderful support and guidance as always. That's really, really something. So, thank you, thank you, thank you, my dear friends. Thank you to Will Gillespie for your lovely attention, support, and great film enthusiasm. I hope our conversations will continue. And I hope this video finds you well, Will. So, with that, my dear friends, so yes, this has been another Patreon friends favorite films list reaction. And I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope to see you at the next video. But until then, my dear friends, and to Will, please continue to be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great, great movies. So until the next video, my dear, dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.